The Carolina Panthers just went out and had one of the best and most complete drafts out of any team in this 2025 NFL draft process. They started on Thursday night by shocking everybody and going with Teteroa McMillan, wide receiver out of Arizona, a definitive #1 alpha receiver. Now, many around the Panthers camp kind of suspected that this was going to be Jalen Walker or another defender like that, maybe trade back, but they could not find a suitable offer, and they really wanted Ted. It was all smoke and mirrors, really, about Jalen Walker, and this pick was destined to be Ted. Excuse me, he wants to be called T-Mac or Nalo, but Teteroa McMillan, 6'4", 220, probably going to play at around 210. He does not move like he's 6'4". He moves like he's 6'1" max. He is really shifty for his size. He has pretty nice speed of 4.4, a 4.4, 4.5 type range speed, but he has those long legs. He has the ability to create great separation. He's a pretty decent route runner, although that could get better. Teteroa McMillan is really, really good in space. And by really, really good, I mean he ranked almost at the top of broken tackle rankings among the college football wide receivers last season. This guy has the opportunity to be our Drake London, be our Justin Jefferson, be our CeeDee Lamb, be our AJ Green. This guy is everything you want in a player, and I think he's even more of what you want in a teammate. He wants to be called Nalo, meaning negative attitudes lose opportunities. I think that embodies the culture that Dan Morgan and Dave Canales are trying to build. T-Mac broke out in his second year at Arizona, where he tallied 90 catches for over 1,400 yards receiving and 10 touchdowns. He did take a step back with less catches and about 100 less yards and only 8 touchdowns in 2024, but he was a consensus All-American wide receiver in 2024. And this is exactly what you need to help the entire offense. This helps Bryce Young first and foremost, getting that #1 big guy that has an insane catch radius, great hands. This allows also Xavier Legette to be able to slow down his development just a little bit and then boom, straight back up, get himself back on track and potentially build himself as a great #2 receiver. This helps Coker potentially move over to the slot and start to learn Adam Thielen's role. Speaking of Adam Thielen, Thielen is going to be cooking in the slot this season. For me, Teteroa McMillan was an absolute smash, a home run of a pick. So moving on to rounds 2 and 3, day 2 on Friday night, and this is where I think the Panthers just completely killed their draft class. This day was insane. It was perfect in my opinion. The Panthers would be sitting at 56, but they would trade up with the Broncos for a slew of picks included in the package, although I think it was a pretty cheap trade up for the Panthers. And despite all of the talent that fell and that just came off the board, Nick Scorton out of Texas A&M, the edge rusher, was selected with the 51st overall pick. Scorton was a guy that if you followed the draft process for the Panthers, you knew about. You knew that the Panthers had the opportunity to potentially trade back and take him in the first round, and that he was a guy that maybe you could get fall to the second round, but the mid-second round, and they got to trade up for him, absolutely phenomenal. 6'3" at A&M, he did play at 280. Right now, he's back down to his Purdue weight around 260. And I think that a weight around 260, 265 may be beneficial for him because he had way better pass rushing production at that lower weight than he did at Texas A&M. At Purdue, he went from a more stand-up outside linebacker type role, and at A&M, he was a 4-3 defensive end. This guy is young. He turns 21 in August. He is gritty. He is the exact player that you want when you have an aging vet going away like Jadeveon Clowney, and a guy that has a sky-high ceiling but a pretty decent floor as well. At A&M, in a role that we probably won't see him in, he had a down year last year, but still all the traits were there. He only had 5 sacks, but he was heavier. His speed rushing took a little bit of a hit because he was heavier, and he was still able to get 5 sacks in the SEC. He also tagged on 14 TFLs alongside that, but let's take a look at the year before at Purdue, and he had 10 sacks. He had 15 TFLs, and his film looks much faster, more fluid, and honestly more powerful at times, as he can turn that higher speed into more power on any sort of speed to power rush that he wants. The only real knock on Scorton as of right now is, he came off of a down year, and his arms at about 33 inches are a little bit short. But if Scorton can take some of the power over from his season playing at around 280 and use it at a 265 or 270, he could be a great edge setter against the run and still be a really, really young and potential-filled pass rusher off the edge. But this Nick Scorton pick would not be as good as it is without the next pick. The Panthers were able to sit back, wait, and then strike. They traded up with the New England Patriots, going from 85 to 77 with using a later round pick to trade up with, and they selected Princely Umanmielen, the edge rusher from Ole Miss. Although Princely was an older prospect, he was coming out as a fifth-year senior. He had 1 year at Ole Miss after 4 years at Florida. This guy is almost the exact opposite of Nick Scorton. 6'4", 244, with arms almost a full inch longer than Scorton's, and an incredible burst off the edge that allows him to be an incredible speed rusher. During his time at Florida, he was able to bump up his sack numbers each year after his sophomore year. And then when he transferred to Ole Miss, he exploded, 10.5 sacks. He also had 14 TFLs. This guy has every tool in the bag to be a sack getter, a guy that can create quick pressure on the quarterback. And if you look at the Panthers' edge roster last year, you really won't find a guy like him. Jadeveon Clowney, DJ Wanham, DJ Johnson, none of those guys really use as much speed as Princely does. And having that much speed does come with a drawback. He is a lighter defensive end. He is a lighter edge rusher. So he is somewhat of a liability in the run game. He also relies on setting up the tackles for his moves, such as getting the outside and then cutting back in with a spin move. His spin move is nasty, but he could be somewhat one-dimensional at times. Regardless, Princely was regarded as a mid-second round pick more often than not, even up to an early second round pick or a first round pick. And the Panthers were able to grab him in the third round of the draft. Day 2 was absolutely knocked out of the park. 3 great picks in the row, but 2 edge rushers in one day at the greatest position of need, and 2 amazing values for guys that Dave Canales said he never got those 2 in any of his mocks. He never got those 2 in the same mock draft ever, and they seemed fired up in the presser that they got those 2. As we know, the talent in the NFL draft becomes less and less as you go through the round, and that cutoff really is at the end of the third round. So day 3 on Saturday was used as a way to get depth and get potential starters that could develop into nice players. So we move on to one of the picks that I'm a little bit questionable about, although I do understand it, and that is Trevor Etienne, the running back from Georgia. I think Dan Morgan's hand was kind of forced with the Jonathan Brooks injury. Although they did sign Rico Dowdle in the offseason, do you really want to go in with a aging Raheem Blackshear as your third back and use a roster spot on him when you can get a younger, more explosive guy in the room? And that's what Trevor Etienne is. He can come in and be that number 3 back. He can be that receiving back. He can be a kick returner, punt returner, whatever you need him to be, but he can sit in the background, and when Rico Dowdle is eventually gone, he can step up and be that number 2 guy. Just an easy way to get fresh legs into a running back room that is somewhat aging. And younger and fresher he is still 20 years old. And then we get right back onto the picks that I think are really, really good. Still in the 4th round, the Panthers went out and selected Lathan Ransom, the safety from the Ohio State Buckeyes. 6 foot 206. He runs pretty good. He is a decent athlete, but this guy is an absolute monster in the run game from the safety position. And that is a mold that I think Dave Canales absolutely loves. You can see it in Trayvon Merrick, the Panthers' really star of their free agency class. Ransom really mirrors Merrick in a lot of things. I don't think he's the caliber of coverage player at all, but he can develop into that. And develop he will. He only had 3 interceptions throughout his college career. that being a 5-year college career. But he also had 6 forced fumbles, 3 of those coming in his last year. So Ransom is a guy that can come in and fight for a starting job against the nickel, Shaw Smith-Wade, or a guy like Damani Richardson, or like Julian Blackman maybe if the Panthers somehow get him, even if he's still on the market. Does this fully solve the safety problem? I do not believe so, but it could be really good for the future, and I would absolutely love for Ransom to surprise me. So keeping with the need on the defensive side of the ball, the Panthers in the 5th round went with Cam Jackson, the defensive tackle out of Florida. This guy is big, 6'6", almost 330, 340. He is big, and he will be a big guy to move on the inside. I'm going to leave a deeper conversation for him on to later for a different video that I want to make, but I am still happy with this pick, and I think it does amazing things for the depth of this defense. So then next, still in the 5th round here, the Panthers selected who I think is the last potential starter, like definitive starter on the offense or defense. Special teams is a little bit off to the side. But Mitchell Evans from Notre Dame, a tight end, and a true tight end he is. He is a factor in the run game, unlike Jatavian Sanders, more than Tommy Tremble. Speaking of Tommy Tremble, fellow Notre Dame tight end. But Evans is a guy, 6'5", almost 260. He can be a factor, be a big body in that tight end room. Now, the reason why Mitchell Evans may have fell in this draft and that the reason why you don't really know his name all too well is he suffered a season-ending ACL injury in the middle of the 2023 season. He was having a pretty decent season, over 420 yards and a touchdown through 8 games that season. In his senior year coming off that ACL, he would not even match the yardage, but he would have 3 touchdowns. But the reason why I think he can be a starter this upcoming season is because he is a complete tight end. He's not a, get outside and be almost like a slot receiver or Tommy Tremble. I mean, Tommy Tremble is a pretty decent true tight end, but still he's more of a receiving tight end. So as long as Mitchell Evans can stay healthy throughout this process, he could earn himself a starting job early in his career. Then the Panthers finished off their draft in the 6th round, selecting Jimmy Horn Jr., the slot receiver from Colorado. Jimmy Horn, shorter guy, plays in the slot, pretty fast, and it's, of course, a later round pick, developmental pick, or a special teams pick, and I think that's what it really is. Jimmy Horn, it could be the return guy for the Panthers, and he could get on the roster by beating out a like Raheem Blackshear, or if they don't want to use Trevor Etienne in that spot. But I still think it's going to be a pretty long track for Jimmy Horn to get on this roster definitively without knocking out a decent receiver out of this core. As normal, day 3 was a little bit lower tier, but still great potential in almost every single one of those picks. What really knocked it out of the park, day 1, day 2, and the depth pieces on day 3, just completely home run, grand slam, A+, S, however you want to put it. The Panthers absolutely stole this draft process and completely filled needs that they really, really had to. I still do have one concern. Cornerback. What are we doing there? It will probably improve as the pass rush gets better. That you can't have J.C. Horn and Mike Jack standing back there for 6 seconds having to defend guys deep. But we still need to try to find a gem at UDFA with the cornerback position. Of course, I'm biased. I'm a Panthers fan. Have been forever. But this is one of my favorite drafts that I've ever seen from them. And Dan Morgan and Dave Canales knocked this out of the park. The Bucks, Falcons, not so much the Saints, but I think they also had pretty good drafts. Although, in my opinion, Falcons may have given up a little bit too much to move back up in the 1st round. It's going to be tough to win this division. But there are pieces here to build to the future. And now we have a number 1 receiver in Carolina. Thank you for watching.